Hello, my name is Zoe Nambahu. I'm a legal practitioner by training. I work for Namibia Power Corporation, known as NamPower. I am responsible for the legal department, compliance, as well as company secretarial. A part of what I do also forms part of preferential procurement in terms of setting targets for preferential procurement. I'm also responsible for business mapping in NamPower. So my title is Chief Legal Advisor, Compliance and Company Secretariat. I happened to start in the energy sector just by chance. It was literally just responding to an advertisement. When I was at university, I knew that, and also when I started my training as a candidate legal practitioner, I knew that litigation was not for me. It wasn't a strong forte. I was really pulled towards the commercial sector, the commercial side of things, corporate law, etc. So once I finished at Stellenbosch University and started as a candidate legal practitioner in the law firm, the first advert I saw while doing my justice training was an advertisement to be a legal advisor in the telecommunications sector. I jumped at the opportunity 6 months into my practical training, and that is where I started my professional growth. I was in the telecommunications sector for 3 years. It was very interesting for me. I really enjoyed the infrastructure side of things, the commercial side of things, construction, understanding how the sector works practically. And so it was a very seamless transition for me when I saw an advert in the paper for manager contracts and commercial at NamPower. And I think the rest is history. I applied, participated in the recruitment process, and started my career in NamPower, actually in the technical business unit, which is the transmission, which is largely responsible for the bulk transmission of power within Namibia in the power sector. It was such a learning curve. It's a very highly technical business unit. The first thing that I needed to understand was, how does the sector work? I remember literally within the first month of being at NamPower, asking a colleague to please take me to a substation so that I can understand really how electricity actually gets transmitted throughout the Namibian grid. He was more than glad to take me, and through understanding the network, through understanding the Namibian grid, through understanding the commodity, which is electricity, it really helped me to provide support to the technical business unit in terms of drafting contracts for our large customers, as well as participating then in power supply agreement negotiations, etc. So that is how I got into the energy sector. And I think with saying this, herein lies the lessons that I always say to younger professionals starting, is to learn as much as possible, to assume as much knowledge as possible, to not be afraid to ask the questions, to seemingly look possibly that you don't know, but it's just you trying to assume wealth to be able to do your job. And I say this all the time to young professionals, that I think this has helped me, do my job as well as I could, by being willing to learn, by willing to stretch myself beyond just my role, understanding other people's roles, understanding what place you fit in the wider scheme of the company's strategic objectives. So I think that would be my advice. Be willing to assume knowledge all the time. Always, there's so much wealth of knowledge out there in the energy sector. Subscribe to articles, read as much as you can, and that will help you grow. The energy sector is really, really evolving. I remember when I started, we were operating in an environment that is a traditional monopoly. NamPower is a state-owned entity. It was the only supplier of electricity in the Namibian economy, and it was the only entity that could supply to large customers and thereafter to distribute. Then after municipalities, etc., would distribute further. So it was the traditional monopolistic environment. And over time, as every sector, competition has been introduced in the market. And with that, there is an evolving space of new opportunities. And I always say to we always say to one another that, in a changing environment, you need to change and evolve with it. And with that comes growth. So one of the things that has been very fascinating for me to see in this evolving environment is how the Namibian electricity sector has grown in terms of private players in the market, independent power producers that are now selling power to NamPower or to other regional electricity distributors. And with that creates opportunity for industry. So I think, in terms of what opportunities there are for Namibia and Namibians specifically, as well as in the energy sector, is that, when we are allowing for competition in the market, of course, we issue public bids in the market. And one of the things that NamPower, as well as myself, who sets targets for preferential procurement, one of the imperatives that we've put out is to ensure that our local industry grows with it, and with that, women as well. So some of the things that we have done, particularly, is with our generation bids, we put out set-asides for Namibian entities, so that Namibian entities can participate in a lot of the subcontracting work. What we also do is that we put a mandatory shareholding requirement for joint venture partners that are going to participate in whether large generation or transmission projects. What has been so wonderful to see, I think even a few months ago, we had just issued a bid and had the signing for PPAs for a wind project that we are doing. And of those previously disadvantaged Namibians that have joint ventured with the large or with the developer, the experienced developer, are two Namibian women. And it was so heartwarming to see how, one of the women was saying that they are so grateful for the opportunity presented to them to participate in not only a project in this magnitude, but also participating. They are adding to Namibia's security of supply requirements as well, and Namibia's clean energy transition, because wind is a renewable technology. So I think that's one of the things that we are doing in NamPower, because public procurement can form a secondary. The secondary objective for public procurement is empowerment and to grow our industries. So in terms of just what opportunities do I see further outside of electricity, you have possibly seen that there's a lot of news with regards to the potential hydrocarbon finds that Namibia potentially has in the oil and gas sector. NamPower has also been a large part of negotiations in in the Kuri gas field. And I think this creates such growth opportunities for Namibians. It's wonderful to see. I know that we have large debates about whether hydrocarbons actually have a place, but I think with these energy transition discussions, it's also important to acknowledge that some of these finds can have a great economic benefit for our country. So it's an exciting space to be in. Namibia has vast potential. Africa has vast potential. Namibia is being looked at as a key location for hydrogen production as well, because of our stable political landscape, because of how we are able to attract foreign direct investment, and because of our renewable solar and vast wind, excellent wind resources in the Lüderitz area. So the opportunities are boundless, and I'm so excited to be a woman, not just a woman, a Namibian in this sector. I can't wait to see how we further develop. I know a lot of us in the energy sector are really being bombarded with transition news and the targets that we are setting. I know in South Africa there's a lot of debate about, how the coal industry, a whole town or a whole province is reliant on the coal industry, and what the targets can do, and whether we can actually replace that economy. So I think that there's a large debate regarding these conversations about transition. And what I am finding is that a lot of these discussions are happening with a national viewpoint in mind, which is very important. I think every country needs to set its transition targets, also targets with regards to its economy, and also with regards to what do we need to do with regards to energy poverty, because energy poverty is real. And I always say that energy poverty also contributes to carbon emissions, because we have our grandmothers burning firewood. So sometimes the question is, what are we transitioning from? But I think and I say this as a Namibian, and a Namibian that also participates that works for a company that participates in the Southern African Power Pool. I think we are really, really positioned nicely as a power pool to take advantages of each other's strengths. Just recently we had meetings as a legal working group, which I'm currently fortunate to chair at the moment. We had meetings with our sister utility and all the other member states of the power pool in Angola, in RNT, at RNT. And we were fortunate enough to have the CEO of RNT come and grace us with his presence for opening remarks. And one of the things that he said was, it's very imperative for a country like Angola to be connected and to participate and to trade in the power pool. And because in them being connected, they are a country with vast amounts of hydro capacity. They actually have excess power. And I think the conversations that we should start having is, the carbon emissions are a real threat. Climate change is a real threat to Africa. Energy poverty is also a really real threat. We need to industrialize our economies. It's going to take a long while that renewables are able to help industrialize our economies, because sometimes it would require firm supply. But I think the conversations should be also, how do we leverage on each other's strengths? We were having conversations on if Angola can form part or become connected with the project that we're envisaging between Namibia and Angola, the ANA project. How Angola could possibly sell excess power from their hydro projects during peak times to Namibia, and Namibia, with its abundance of sun, we have an abundance of sun, and sometimes we have excess capacity during the day because of our solar projects, and we then can supply each other. So I think these are some of the lessons and conversations that we need to have. I think sometimes we in the energy sector, we take a real national view of trying to ensure security of supply, and what do we need to do as countries to ensure that we move away from energy poverty. But I think we need to start having conversations as Africans, as Southern Africans, as to how do we solve energy poverty for ourselves, and how do we leverage off each other's strengths. Ramaphosa was saying, if we just develop Inga's potential, what it could mean for energy security for Africa, and that's a dam that's clean, that's renewable, and it can solve Africa's energy poverty. So I think as Africans, Africans in the energy sector, as Southern African, we need to take a step back. I believe that we should take a step back and discuss, how do we solve each other's problems by interconnecting and leveraging off each other's strengths. There's opportunity there. I don't think we will solve our problems if we always have an internal look at just solving these issues. So I think for me, my perspective, we have such value in the Southern African power pool. It's such a great pool. It's so efficient. We can do so much with it. And I think as Africans, we need to see how to create an interconnected system so that we can secure energy for ourselves and our people. I will go back to Namibia. I mean, there's so much. Today, I actually, in fact, read an article in the Brief newspaper about the potential for lithium beneficiation in Namibia. So, taking the energy sector even wider, I mean, just thinking of how lithium mining, which Namibia has so much potential for, and if we do beneficiation properly, just how it will grow our economy, and lithium being such an important component for the energy transition. I mean, they're used in batteries for electric vehicles. The oil and gas industry will do so much. I think the conversation should be had at schools as to what industries can be created, what industries can we create in the oil and gas, or what jobs we can create in the oil and gas sector. Women becoming artisans, women going to study chemical engineering for any processing plants throughout the sector. So I think we have so much potential. Like I said, Namibia's market is opening up. There are a lot of IPPs that are coming out. Namibian EPC contractors are sprouting up. We are really, really becoming a force to be reckoned with. and those are jobs for women engineers as well, to form part of these EPC companies, to form part of these transmission companies, because this grid needs to be strengthened to take up these renewables. We speak of microgrids. Just recently, an article on what the World Bank is doing for microgrids in Nigeria, just to ensure that those populations that are off the grid do get electricity. There can also be potential for women to own these companies, to operate and maintain these companies. And then also, just coming back to where I'm from a legal perspective, all these foreign companies that come in and bring in foreign direct investment will need legal advice in terms of the Namibian regulatory framework, how land is procured, etc., etc. So I think we are at the forefront of jumping at these opportunities as well. What was interesting, we currently doing a project, a generation project, and we're getting a DFI to assist us in terms of grant funding as well as loan funding for that project. And what was very commendable of that DFI is one of the requirements for them is that they want to see gender mainstreaming in the power utility at the project site as well, and as at NamPower. And, there are certain things that I've taken for granted in terms of, women, because I recognize that I'm a woman in a support role. And I sit in an office, I go and negotiate, in boardrooms, whether in Southern Africa. So some of the lessons that I thought I knew are not the lessons that my technical colleagues have on site. And I remember having a conversation with one of the senior managers, and I asked him, I'm actually going to mention his name, and when we were having these focus group discussions, and I asked him, but David, we see the young engineers, we see the young ladies, we see young girls entering NamPower, but then there's no funnel. Where's the funnel? When you interview into managerial positions, etc., we are the ladies. And he said that's an interesting question, Zoe. And he says he thinks it's a little bit hard for ladies sometimes being out in the field, etc. So I think sometimes we ask the question, what advice do we have for women in the industry? I think after that, I've learned to ask my question as to what do I, also as a leadership position in this company, what conducive environment can I create for women in this sector? And I think, we are hard workers. We are talented. We are hard workers. We do not lack. We are educated. When you go in, I recently just graduated again, and when you go to these graduation ceremonies, it's majority women. We do not lack integrity in terms of our work ethic. So I think what we need to do is start asking ourselves the question as to what conducive environments am I creating for women to be able to flourish, and to not make the difficult choice, to be able to say, okay, so for me to now, move up in this sector, I need to make a sacrifice between this or that. I need to make a sacrifice between having a family, or I need to sacrifice if I want to continue in this trajectory, in this path. So I think that's I think as women that are trying to make it in this sector, I think we need to be able to create a conducive environment for our females, for our young professionals, so that they can have an easier path than we did. And then the last thing that I would say is that this might sound cheeky, but I always tell my younger cousins, when you find a partner, ask the right questions. And you must ask the right questions, because I wouldn't have been able to do the things that I do, to travel the way that I travel, for PPA negotiations, whether going with the team to Zambia, going to SAP meetings, to Eswatini, to RNT, going to London for a month with the Arbitration Academy, if I did not have a partner that understood that, I have dreams outside of my family, and that doesn't exert that patriarchal role of, you need to be home, you need to look after the kids, and that can step up. So I think if there's one advice that I need to give women is, your partner makes it, breaks you. Choose well. There are so many talented women out there. For anybody that's in position of power, for any person that can create policies to allow more women in this sector, be that network. Be that network for women. Don't. It shouldn't be about knowing Zoe and creating a path for Zoe because you know Zoe. There are so many Zoes out there. Be the catalyst to allow more women to experience the sector, to learn from the sector, to grow from the sector, and to get opportunities and be empowered from these sectors. So be a coach, be a network, and create policies that allow more women in this sector.
Thank you.